Very excited to share an MS recovery case story with you today. I'm going to be showcasing one of all the wellness champions are my favorite, but this student has worked so hard, has had so much success, and I'd like to take a few minutes to share her many successes as she is recovering from multiple sclerosis. If we haven't met, my name is Pam Bartha. I am the author of Become a Wellness Champion and the founder of Live Disease Free. And I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis over 30 years ago. And by the grace of God and work on my part, I learned very early on that MS is caused by infections. And as I treated the infections, I was able to recover. And I've been able to live over 30 years now free of MS. And I've had the amazing privilege to coach at least 1,000 wellness champions in their recovery. And I do share their successes. Today, I'm going to be showcasing a beautiful lady, a wellness champion who started her road to recovery at the age of 73 years old. So it's never too late. And she also had primary progressive multiple sclerosis. So it's never too late to start. It doesn't matter what type of MS we're dealing with, you're going to see the amazing successes that she's been having. So I've created some slides. I'm going to head over to the slides. Just one moment, please. There we go. Awesome. So this case study is a student that is recovering from multiple sclerosis. And she is 73, well, when she started, 73 years young. She started in January in 2019. And every case study that I share with you, people are different. We have different environments. We have different types of infections that are causing the MS. And so what you're going to hear is her journey, and maybe you can relate to some of the things that she has gone through. So she is, again, she's 73 years old, and the work that she was doing at this stage is caring for young children. So she was still working part-time, helping to care for young kids, and she had primary progressive multiple sclerosis. She was diagnosed in 2014, but she had a lot of other symptoms and different kinds of conditions. So she had peripheral neuropathy, she had tingling, she had thyroid disease, Hashimoto's, dry spots on her body, brittle nails, and fungus in her toe nails, osteoporosis for at least 20 years. And it didn't matter what medication she used, her bone density, she had brittle bones and it was getting worse and worse. She also started to develop osteopenia in her hip. She had parathyroid surgery. She also had high cholesterol and kidney stones and arthritis in her finger joints and lower back issues. She had back surgery because she had a herniated disc at some point in her life. She was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in 2014. And some of the MS symptoms she was dealing with was poor digestion. That's very common with multiple sclerosis. She had very strong cravings and fatigue, poor memory, depression, anxiety, pain, poor balance, spasticity, numbness, weakness in her legs. Her mobility was impacted, and she had a lot of bladder issues. The medications that she was on, she chose not to use the disease-modifying drugs. That was her choice. But she also was using Synthroid for her Hashimoto, her low thyroid, and Advil for when she would get terrible headaches. So she started this journey with me in January 2019. And things that she tried in the past. So a lot of students that I attract, they've tried things. So she worked with physiotherapy, she did occupational therapy, chiropractic, she worked with a personal trainer, she changed her diet, she tried paleo, she tried keto, but everything that she tried, like nothing really made a difference for her. And she was really confused about what she should eat and what she should not eat. She wasn't sure which diet she should follow. Her health history, this is very common as a child. She had a lot of infections and antibiotics. It's not always the case, but it's very, very common that this is the issue. So as a child, She had bladder infections, she had strep throat, tonsillitis, tonsils removed, adenoids removed. She had a cyst on her wrist, so she had surgery to remove that. And then as she was older, she did get the herniated disc, and she had occasional bladder infections, 2 normal healthy pregnancies, and she was a runner, so she was fit. And this is like, I attract a lot of students that they were really fit before. They weren't couch potatoes, they weren't unhealthy people. They were super fit, but the infections caused them to lose their strength, and then they could no longer exercise. And I'm going to talk about her journey in the 90 days, because the Academy is a 90-day program where we build the plan and we implement the plan, and it's individualized to each person because, yes, chronic disease is caused by infections, but when we were on antibiotics, we were exposed to different types of infections. So we don't all, even if we have the same diagnosis of multiple sclerosis, we may not have exactly the same infections. So she started in the first week to 2 weeks learning the Live Disease-Free diet. And I know for her, she had a lot of cravings. And for some people, that's really hard because for the first 10 days, you're giving up sugar, and we eat regularly. We make sure we have protein and fat with each meal, so we get through it. But for the first 7 to 10 days, it can be hard when you're going through the sugar withdrawals. So she was healthy otherwise, but she went through following the diet, getting the carbs low enough, and then her bowel was like on both. Like most people that I work with, they have constipation, but she had urgency with not just bladder, but with bowels and constipation. So some people have alternating diarrhea and constipation, and that's what she had too. And then just starting to look at her health history and starting to understand, like what happened in my life that caused me to end up in this position, and dealing with sleep. So for most of her life, she could only sleep for 4 to 5 hours at a time with her bladder issues. And just a lot of my students have insomnia. They have a hard time falling asleep. And if they wake up, they can't fall back asleep. And that's really detrimental to healing. And it actually makes us sicker. It just makes our immune system so much more weak. So she was extremely sleep deprived. And then she had a lot of bowel issues. So she's in the first few weeks just really trying to get those things under control. And then in week 3 to week 4, this is where we really dive into our health history, really understanding, why did we come down with this disease? What happened in our life? Whether it was certain infections and antibiotic use, maybe there were certain surgeries, maybe there were some of our habits, that our health habits, maybe it was things in our environment. Sometimes people live in a moldy home or moldy workplace, wireless radiation, high stress. All these different factors really help us to paint the picture to understand why we got sick. Because if we understand why we got sick, we can make sure we never end up in that position again. She also started looking for a doctor that would support her in writing the prescriptions for the parasite drugs and in just monitoring her blood work. And she started following the diet. She noticed that she was starting to have a little bit less pain. And her update, she found that she was walking better. And let me backtrack for a minute too, because this is something that for some students that I work with, the sugar cravings are so strong. These infections make us crave sugar, almost like a drug addiction. And so for her, she was like, well, I've been keto for so long, even before this Live Disease-Free plan. So I can have, it was some kind of birthday celebration. She had a piece of cake and she really paid for it. And that was enough for her to say, no more of that. But then it doesn't take long, just a few days, getting the carbs back down again. And she started noticing with the work she was doing and starting to do enemas that her walking was starting to improve during the day, especially if she was doing a little bit of a workout, and she was just doing what she could do with exercise. And that is another really important thing, is that we take back our mobility, but we pace ourselves. We do enough activity so that by the end of the day, we don't feel wasted. We want to conserve energy for healing also. Week 5 and 6, this is where she had ordered the blood work, because before we start treating, we want to look at our blood work and support our physiology. This is part of the prep phase before we start treating. So looking to see which areas of our physiology we need to support, whether it's our thyroid, whether it's our B12, our iron, our adrenals, etc. So we look through that. And that's also where the students learn how to read their own blood work, because if you're borderline, like just on the border of being too high or too low out of the normal range, and the doctor might not really deal with it because you're still in the normal range, but if you catch it early, then you can make sure that you correct it before you end up out of the normal range, so before you have your blood work is not normal. Very important to do that. Proactive, right? So to learn how to read your blood work. And then also just with supplements, just that this is where she's learning how to read the labels of supplements, because most of our students are taking a ton of different nutritional supplements and they don't even know if they're helpful. Sometimes they're actually making matters worse. They could be feeding the infections. They're usually synthetic. So this is where their students, and she was simplifying her supplements down to just basic plant source nutritional multivitamin, mineral, maybe a little bit of extra calcium, vitamin D for most students if they're not getting enough sunshine. But those are kind of the basics. And the exciting thing is that her GP, her doctor, was really excited in what she was doing. And this is not always the case. So her doctor said, I'd love to support you. I think it makes total common sense. It looks safe. I'd love to support you. So this is where she was at week 5 and week 6, and starting the oxidizing agent. So the oxidizing agent is like an oxygen type therapy, and we do enemas with it, and we take it orally. The students will normally start with the enemas because it helps relieve the constipation. It kills the parasites on contact. That's how we see the parasites. They're coming out dead. And then also treating orally. That way we're treating the blood of some of the smaller different types of bacteria and single cell protists, and possibly even fungus, possibly smaller worms, but definitely not the larger ones in the blood because we're not getting strong enough concentrations there. But here she's already starting to treat by that oxidizing agent, because these critters are treated by the oxidizing agents. So week 7 and 8, this is where she was up at the full dose of the oral oxidizing agent and doing the enemas, and she was passing worms. And sometimes I share pictures. I didn't share hers because they're not cleaned up well enough. But she passed more from the first early ones on. It was more mucus and biofilm, and yes, some smaller worms. But some students pass, over 2-foot worms very clearly. And again, they might have multiple sclerosis. They might just have Lyme disease. But every person is different, and unfortunately, it's not always the same. So she was taking pictures of them, sending them to me. But just by treating orally and enemas, just with the oxidizing agent, and following the diet and supporting the body through the checklist for healing, just making sure she's having daily bowel movements and sleeping at least 8 hours a night, and looking at her blood work and supporting areas and looking at her supplements. So there's a lot of things that the students are doing in the prep phase. And that is really important because it makes the treatments work so much better. If you guys have any questions about this process, make sure to type your questions in the question box. If you like what I'm sharing about these case studies, if you love the teaching that I give to you, I'm happy. Last week I wasn't here. I was doing a live event. But if you like that, please like it and share it. It helps us to get the word out, because MS is an infectious disease. It's caused by different types of infections. And as we treat them, you'll see how this wellness champion, how her success, and actually she has the first name, her first name is the same as mine. Her first name is Pam. And she lives in the United States. And actually, after I have interviewed her, and I'm going to upload her video to YouTube, and you'll be able to go there. We have a playlist on Live Disease Free on our YouTube channel. You'll be able to go there and look for Pam, and you'll be able to hear her. She's so bubbly and she's so inspiring, and you'll just love her. You just see she breaks into tears in the middle of the interview. So week 7 and 8, so she's still preparing here, but she is starting to clear out some of the large intestines, the parasites in the large intestines and in the blood through the oxidizing agent. She's also taking activated charcoal, which is a binder which helps to suck up or absorb the poisons in the intestines, and just the plant source multivitamin mineral. And she said, no foggy head. The walking pace has increased, getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep at night, which is a huge change from 4 to 5 hours that she was getting for years. Huge, huge difference in how I feel if I get less sleep. So some of us are so sleep deprived and we don't know how awful it makes us feel because we've been living like that for so long. And so you can see her excitement. Oh my goodness, Pam, you are spot on and amazing what God is doing through you. So I really believe that this program is, by the grace of God, we're doing this work. It's not, I'm not taking the credit for it. I ask for a lot of help, and this is the work that we're doing. So then going on to the next week, so week 9 and week 10. So this is where she is continuing to use the oxidizing agent orally in enemas, and her blood work came in, her new blood work test results came in, and she practiced reading them. She started on the antimicrobial herbs. So you can see that she hasn't started the parasite drugs yet, and every student is different. She's going at her pace. She's 73. She doesn't look 73. She looks younger, but with primary progressive and feeling as awful as you do, like everyone is different. So it doesn't matter as long as you're moving forward. It still is just weeks versus years. So when our students have completed the prep phase, this is the diet, getting the carbs low enough so that they start notice symptom improvements and supporting the body, and then they're ready to start treating. And at this point, she's getting the samples of like her doctor's working with her, she's getting the samples of common parasite drugs. And then she is making an appointment with another practitioner who can do energy testing. Usually the doctors, the MDs, cannot do energy testing. They're usually not skilled at it. So she's getting all this stuff organized in the background. But while she's doing that, now that she knows she can tolerate the oxidizing agent, that she doesn't get a Herxheimer reaction, now she is also including the herbs, the antimicrobial herbs. So she's starting to do things like oil of oregano and grapefruit seed extract and garlic. Raw garlic is really powerful, and olive leaf extract. So that is a dictation typo there. So it's olive leaf extract and also wormwood and black walnut. So she was introducing them one at a time, and we follow a very specific pattern of introducing them through rotation. And then if we tolerate them, then we double up on them and triple up on them. And then we can even move to a blend of herbs. And we're only using that. It is helpful to knock back bad bacteria and smaller protists and smaller parasites. But the herbs alone are not enough to treat the large parasites in the intestines. They're not enough to treat the parasites that move into our blood, into our organs, and into the central nervous system. That's why we incorporate the parasite drugs also. But we start with this while the students are getting figuring out which they test well for. So she tested well for 5 parasite drugs. And in weeks 11 and 12, so she was on the antimicrobial herbs and also using the oxidizing agent. And she noticed that she believes that there are times during the day when her walking is faster and is a little better and a little faster. So this is where she got to at the end of the 90 days. And then at that point, she went into grad support, which is month by month, take it or leave it. She just needed extra support. So what happened with her next is that she ended up injuring her meniscus, and she ended up having to go for surgery. So of course, when you go in for surgery, you want to stop your supplements, you want to stop your treatments. And so she ended up going in for this surgery, but she had a different surgery schedule too. So she had to put her treatments on pause. But the nice thing is she did not get worse. She stayed with the benefits that she had. And then a few weeks later, she was able to start picking up the pace of the treatments again. And so then she has done several cycles of the 5 parasite drugs that she tested well for, and I think just 1 fungal drug that she tested well for. And I just wanted to share some of her more recent, and this was like from my interview with her, which was just approximately a month ago. So she is like 75 years old right now. And a lot of people would think, at 75 years old with primary progressive, like, why bother? Why not just, your life is almost over, suffer? But there is still so much living to do. And at 75, like, what if she lives till she's 100? Isn't it a lot better to have full quality of life, to be able to fully enjoy your life until you're at least 100? Absolutely. So why did she decide to join the Live Disease Free Academy? You'll hear her in her video if you want to listen to her later. You just want to hug her. She's such a beautiful lady. But her big why is, and she broke into tears. She said, I'm not going to end up in a wheelchair. That was her big why. She's like, no way, no how. And again, she tested well for four parasite drugs and the herbs. And the one thing I wanted to share about her too, that's like, every student is different. Some students are 100% following instruction, no deviation, no cheating, no falling. But Pam had really strong addictions. And so she was improving, but not near as much as I thought she would. Well, after she had that surgery and she had the meniscus injury and she, that kind of set her back, she came back with a vengeance, and she really, really implemented really well. And then within just 6 months, this is what happened with her. So, and this is what she shares in her video, which you can listen to later. So she got really serious and no more cheating. And her osteopenia in her hip stabilized. The osteoporosis, which she's had for 20 years, she's used many different drugs. Nothing has helped. It was a marked improvement in her osteoporosis in less than 6 months. Her cholesterol went from 300 down to 240, down to 222. And now she has so much energy. Her fatigue is gone. Her brain fog is gone. She can sleep through the night. And as I mentioned, for 40 years, she has slept for 4 to 5 hours a night. And now she sleeps 7 to 8 hours. Her body doesn't hurt when she wakes up in the morning. She's so excited. Her balance is not 100%, but it's improving tremendously. She is able to work in 100-degree temperature weather this past summer for 6 hours at a time, landscaping in her yard. And she didn't even have to go to the bathroom. And she did not feel tired after. And she's able to walk. She's able to hold herself up without, like in church, she would always have to hold on to the bench in front so she wouldn't fall over. She doesn't have to hold on to anything anymore. She now, after church, before, she would always wait for her husband, and she'd put her arm through his arm and he would lead her around. And now she just busts into the crowd and walks over to whoever she wants to talk to. And she's able to walk more and more without aid, and just so incredibly exciting. So this is what happens when you get real serious. And so this is an example of a wellness champion who, she was doing really well, like she was really improving. But when you get serious with, and the big thing of the seriousness is getting the carbs down low enough, consistently getting them into that 35 to 40 total grams of carbs range, where the infections are less active, the inflammation starts to go down, and we start to have symptom improvement. And then the drugs work so much better. So she still has a few more treatments to go, but I have some great words of wisdom from her. So her words of wisdom is, you may have MS, but MS doesn't have you. You choose to be your own advocate and go for it. You choose to go for it, and don't be afraid of it. So I know she says that way better than I do, but just absolutely love her and her success. So I'm just going to see if you guys have any quick questions about, and I'm going to be moving off of YouTube and Facebook because I want to share more sensitive material about like what the students are doing that I can't share here. But just wanted to say hello to Nisi, hi, and Maureen, hi, Nicole. Looks like you guys are just enjoying it, but not a lot of questions. You're planning to do a PhD on this, Shannon. That is amazing. Please email me and reach out to me. We've started an MSIDI, which is the Multiple Sclerosis Infectious Disease Initiative. We are lining up to do clinical trials. and to really figure out which are the best like tests for testing for these types of microbes that are infecting us, that are causing the MS and other chronic disease. But we're going to start with MS and which are the best treatments. So please, Shannon, reach out to me. Oh, you are supervisor from UBC. That is so exciting. So we're in the same neck of the woods. So please reach out. And Joanne, starting bone broth and probiotic complex. So really important. Our students don't do well on bone broth. In labs, when they're trying to culture bacteria, they often use broth as a really good food or medium to grow the bacteria on. So all I know is that if our students have regular, even homemade bone broth, very often their symptoms can be worse. So fruit is healthy, but it's high in sugar and it will feed the infection. So we definitely really limit that. And the carbs there's lots of healthy vegetables, but the high carbs in some of the vegetables will feed the infections. The inflammation will be stronger and you'll feel worse. Same with bone broth. I would not do bone broth. I would not take collagen because even Lyme, the Borrelia, thrives on collagen. And the Borrelia is one of the infections that's very common in multiple sclerosis. So you may do more damage than good. And actually, a new student that just joining today shared, oh my gosh, I just spent all this money on all this organic fruits and, like high carbohydrate vegetables and fruit. And I'm actually making myself sicker and I didn't even know it. And that's why it's so important to know what you're doing, because it's so confusing out there. There's so much health information. And, like I ran into one gentleman when I was going to a workshop and he was driving a taxi and he just finished cancer treatment and he had a big smoothie of bananas and all kinds of fruit in it. I'm like, that's the worst thing you could do because sugar feeds cancer, right? Because cancer is also an infectious disease. So it's really important that you know that what you're doing is not making matters worse. And that's what I can help you with in the Live Disease Free Academy. So if this is new to you, this is the first time you've ever heard that the disease you're living with could be caused by infections, then make sure to watch my videos. I've got a whole playlist, and we've just had a psychiatrist join us as a student today. So we have all kinds of healthcare professionals that can't get well because our standard of care doesn't recognize these infections, doesn't treat them, and that's really what's causing our symptoms. That's what's causing the disease. So if this is new to you, watch my videos, start to learn, start to build a belief system. Follow the Live Disease Free diet. I've got lots of videos on it. Start to implement, start to notice significant symptom improvements. And when you're ready and you're like, okay, I get it. I believe I have infections. That's what's making me sick. I need support. If you need guidance and a step-by-step plan that is proven, then I can help you in the Live Disease Free Academy. Watch my masterclass training, and then you can join and become a wellness champion and you can take back your health and your life. But I've got lots that you can get started with. So you can learn the process, you can build up your belief system and your understanding, and that's really important. Well, the problem is, Joanne, is that if you are loaded with bacteria and parasites that thrive on bone broth and collagen, then it is healthy for your stomach, but it's also healthy for the infections that are making you sick. And this is through a proven plan, the Academy, where we've worked with many, many students. So I see this. If somebody's having regularly homemade soups and they're not improving, and if they cut out the soup very often, they start to improve. So pay close attention to that. Something is healthy if it's full of nutrition, but only if it's not feeding the infection that is making you disabled. So when you leave YouTube, your older videos will still be, I'm not going to be leaving YouTube. I'm going to be, the videos will be there, but I just want to be able to share more information that's sensitive here. I can't share what I want here. I'm still responsible. I'm not being reckless and I'm not prescribing and diagnosing, but it's just the censorship is so strong here that I'm trying to figure out where I should go or how I should do that. But very important that I should be able to share a little bit more. But this has been safe to share. What is the best way to improve mobility? The best way to improve mobility is to treat what's causing your weakness and your spasticity and your balance issues and the stiffness. It is infections. So if you treat the infections, I don't know if you are in a wheelchair right now. I can never promise full recovery, but we are seeing people in walkers and wheelchairs that do recover. And it really mounts, it boils down to the damage that's done. Is it still inflammation, or is it permanent scarring to nerve tissue, to the myelin sheath? And if it's permanent scarring, then that cannot be improved. But if it is just inflammation, that can heal. And the exciting thing is that there is so much that is still inflammation. So when you treat the infections, the disease process stops and you will have a lot of recovery, a lot more than you thought possible. The probiotic complex, Joanne, is okay as long as it does not contain prebiotics. So prebiotics, they put food in the probiotic supplement to feed the little good bacteria, but that food can also feed the bad microbes in your gut. So if you just have only the microbes, the probiotic microbes with no prebiotics and no dairy, that should be fine, but it's really not going to make much of a difference. It's kind of like I say, if you have a lawn and it's just infested with weeds, let's say crabgrass or quackgrass, and you try to sprinkle a little bit of health, like nice grass in it, it's not going to take, because it's going to get choked out. And so that's what happens when we have chronic disease. It's not really going to make a huge difference. So a lot of our students, they don't start with probiotics because they start to actually treat the bad. And then once the bad has been treated significantly, then they start to bring in the good. See if there's any last quick question. So we talked about the bone broth. I think that is it for, I'm really excited, Shannon. I hope you reach out to me. We're building a team of healthcare professionals, doctors, researchers that can be behind the MSIDI. We want to bring change to how multiple sclerosis is being treated, starting with MS, but then moving to other chronic diseases. So it's all neurological diseases like ALS, PLS, Parkinson's. I work with all these wellness champions, but we're starting with the MS, and really excited to have this group of people behind us. All right, so I'm just going to go back to here. Oh, here we go. So thank you for spending this time with me. I will be back next Wednesday with another live event teaching you about how these infections are causing disease and the steps that we take to recover. So please like and share this with others, and also watch our videos, start to learn about this. And when you're ready for a plan, watch my masterclass training and become a wellness champion. I'm excited to support you. Take care and bye-bye for now.